So, okay. Can go?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Kelli Gile, and as you, I have gathered you guys here to discuss the pharmaceutical industry. Hold on, let me start over. Okay. I've gathered you here to discuss policy about the pharmaceutical industry. By law, brand name drugs are required to put warning labels immediately. I'm trying to figure out this word. When a problem immediately arises in the industry. However, there is a law that says generic drugs cannot do so until the drug itself has gone through a series of qualifications and has been approved through a long process. The DEA is an industry also known as the Drug Enforcement Administration, and they're in charge of supervising all drug, basically relationships, I want to say. And the DEA is attempting to regulate production by limiting the manufacturers on how much medication they can make. So the problem with this is that doctors can write as many prescriptions as they need to, yet the DEA is limiting the producers while the doctors have unlimited scripts to write. This is okay. The FDA is in charge of regulating, supervising drugs, and as it goes through a long approval process, they're basically in charge of what goes in and what goes out. Whenever you have a brand name drug and you want to have a generic substrate from it, the drug itself has to go through countless trials, examining efficiency, it has to have the same dose, it has to be administered in the same route, yet the generic actual formulary makeup is not regulated amongst manufacturer to manufacturer. So each drug technically is labeled and marketed as the same drug, has different components of it. This in turn leads to patients getting taken advantage of in such a complex industry that they're more a pawn, and they are supervised by these large entities, and they have no choice but to follow them because of the relevance of the industry itself. Being consumers and that we ingest medications, we should have a right to protect ourselves. However, when the FDA withholds important information, patients are unable to properly analyze what they're completely taking. So, for example, I hand you this medication, it's an antidepressant, that's all you know. The only thing you know about it is it's an antidepressant. You don't know what makes this pill, what holds the pill together. Why is the pill yellow? Yet, it doesn't matter because it's not regulated throughout drug to drug. And whenever, as I discussed before, whenever a brand name has a problem with it, a warning label is implemented immediately. But by law, the generic drug cannot go through this process, cannot put a warning label on their medication until it has been approved by the FDA. Now, this means that while this drug is going through this long process, more people are potentially facing these negative side effects that have already been reported. Failure to warn is a term used in a court of law that talks about when when a drug manufacturer fails to warn their customers, their consumers of possible side effects. And the brand name gets in trouble for negligence while the generic drugs just sit around and wait for the brand names to process. People have a right to be warned about specific side effects in order to protect themselves, in order to realize, am I taking this drug? Is this going to hurt me? Is this drug worth taking, or do the risks outweigh the benefits? And after they receive the warning, patients can determine to go to take certain manners in whatever way they please, whether that means taking different medication or not taking any medication at all. And if generic drugs are identical as they are advertised, there is absolutely no reason why the generic drugs shouldn't have the exact same side effects as the brand name drugs. And therein lies the problem that the brand name drugs can warn their customers when, even if a generic company wanted to warn their customers, by law they cannot do so. Now, patients are only able to make these decisions if their supplies are available. The DEA, as mentioned before, has been limiting quotas, or has been setting quotas for production matters. Now, this is due to an increased rate of prescription drug abuse, so the DEA is taking it upon themselves to decrease the excess of medication available. The only problem with this is that not only does it affect the abusers, but it also affects the people who need the medication and who have doctor's orders to receive these medication. It makes the medication more difficult to attain, and in turn causes frustration to the doctors, causes frustration to the patients, and even causes frustrations to the manufacturers who are being restricted on how much they can make. A doctor's profession, well, a doctor is who he is because of the long, strenuous process he has gone through to get his degree. And if a doctor determines a patient needs a script, who's to say that that script is too much? Who's to say that that patient does not need this much medication? Now, regulation is unwarranted and impossible to predict when doctor activity is impossible to predict. It is impossible to predict. As patient script numbers flux, patients are inconvenienced because of their lack of available medication. Patients are also inconvenienced by unexplained and random drug interactions, which comes up due to the FDA's lack of regulation of generic ingredients, or not generic ingredients, the lack of inactive ingredients. Manufacturers, as mentioned before, have to prove certain relevance, or not relevance, certain similarities, identicalness from the brand to generic, pill, dosage, everything. But as mentioned before, it's not regulated, the inactive ingredients, and the patients do not know that. As the medication is advertised, patients see the drug advertised as the drug and don't get to see any of the extra ingredients. Even though it's inactive, patients can still have reactions to it. For example, in Alamosa Pharmacy, we had a girl who couldn't take a certain bupropion, Mylan's bupropion, because it would upset her stomach and she would be vomiting. But when we switched her to Teva, she had absolutely no problems with it. And it turns out it was just due to the makeup, due to the ingredients that they used to hold the pill together that was irritating her body. But most patients don't know this, and patients will disregard a medication altogether. They'll have an allergic reaction to bupropion, and instead of trying a different manufacturer, they will completely disregard the medication in general. And this is unfortunate because a medication that could have worked for a person potentially won't because of one simple ingredient that's disregarded. In order for the doctors to be able to evaluate the patients as well, they need to know what's in the medications. And if the medications aren't regulated by the FDA and the ingredients are all different, how are doctors supposed to prescribe appropriate medications? How are patients supposed to know what they're taking? Why are they reacting the way that they're acting? And most importantly, how are manufacturers supposed to know how their product differs from other products in order to advertise that, in order to basically express that in their warnings and whatnot.
And in order to do that, we all know that
I better go. Thank you.
Anybody have a question?
Are going to decide America's growth. They're going to decide the world's growth.
So you found no policies regulating
As we know, no child
like the testing of the generics of all the different side effects. There's no uniform like
No, all they have to do is prove
the
their
active ingredients.
yeah.